Hello everyone and welcome to episode 45 of the Spawn Point podcast. Joining us as always is Andy.
Hello.
And Ebbie.
Hello.
And not Steve because he's been eaten by a giant grizzly bear. No, not really, but he's not here. So this week we're going to be talking about Gamescom, what we thought of it, comparing it to E3, and also talking about the Splatoon August update that happened recently and the new leveling system and some of the new content that they've put out for that game. The Gamescom, guys, there wasn't many press conferences. There was Microsoft, EA, and Blizzard, which Blizzard mostly talked about Hearthstone and World of Warcraft. Let's talk about Microsoft. So Sony didn't show up, so they didn't really have, to worry about being outshowed at the event because they're literally like the only one out of the big three companies. But they showed off quite a few things. They announced there's a chat pad, which I'll never use because I never like the chat pads. They talked about DVR functionality, which you can use if that's your kind of thing. TV for Xbox One. I thought they wouldn't really bring that up.
I mean, I thought they'd learned their lesson from like the reveal thing originally from Xbox, but it's something that people might use.
It was, to be fair, it was only briefly like a brief mention. One of the cool things actually was that the Games with Gold program, which is basically like the PlayStation Plus, where you get the free games. The future stuff where they do Games with Gold for Xbox 360 titles will also be playable on Xbox One. So basically, if you're an Xbox 360 owner and you go, oh cool, I've got Games with Gold, I've got 2 free games. If you've got an Xbox One, you haven't got a 360 anymore, and you go, oh, I'm missing out. You're not anymore because you can also get them on the Xbox One. So you're getting the 360 games and the Xbox One games each month that are free.
Is that when they do the whole backwards compatibility thing on 360?
So it'll be like once that's launched, which is in November, then they'll start saying like all of those games moving forward will always be available on both, basically.
Okay.
There's also Crackdown 3. They decided to... The weird thing about Crackdown is it went from originally being like a reboot, or people thought it was a reboot. Then they were like, oh, it's Crackdown 3. But that's got 100% destructible environments in the multiplayer. So you can destroy like the entire city. And the way it does that is through cloud gaming. So in order to handle...
What is cloud gaming?
What is cloud gaming? But apparently it allows the Xbox One to have 20 times more power enabled to like do it. So basically like 20 Xbox Ones.
So this was only the multiplayer. Like it wasn't nothing to do with single player at all. Like have they even spoken about that? Because that's something that's confused me.
I think that there will be a single player, but because in the single player,
I mean, like destruction.
Not 100% and apparently that's because it requires. I mean, they could have done that, but then it would have to require an always online, DRM type thing where it's like always online. And a lot of time that gets bad press. Also, apparently, one of the game developers that works on Crackdown said that because in a single player, you're basically trying to save the city, completely destroying it doesn't make much sense. I mean, there would be the option there too, but it'll be like save the city, just destroy it all.
I guess by the end of the single player campaign, you would just get a completely flat environment.
Exactly, as well, yeah. So yeah, that is pretty cool but it is only possible, like if we didn't have cloud gaming, the Xbox One wouldn't be able to handle that, because that's just beyond. I don't really fully understand how cloud gaming works. I'm not really like one of those tech savvy. Well, you see, you get the processing power from the...
See, now, like, I know it's something slightly different, but wasn't this originally what they said the SimCity couldn't handle? SimCity needed cloud gaming, and that's why it was always online, because it couldn't handle all of the extra shit.
I don't think it was, because...
Put in it.
But the thing is, though, SimCity had, like, fuck all content. Like, it was so... Like, compared to City Skylines, actually. Like, City Skylines, you can build... I think it's up to... You can have, like, these 2 kilometers... 2 kilometers per, like, square or whatever, times, like, 24 tiles. One of those tiles in SimCity is that's it.
But even so, they're adamant that cloud gaming needed to be always online for them to be able to do that. Yet, like, they suddenly went, oh no, actually we can do that offline now.
See, I'm not bothered if they're going, oh, the multiplayer is always online because obviously. But if they're saying, the single player, you can play it by yourself, you don't have to be online.
That's probably why they didn't say, like, as well, like, oh, let's have it offline as well, because imagine if it doesn't work. They're putting a lot behind that game because, it's been a lot since, like, the last one wasn't so popular and the original one was really popular, and it's been a while since that, and a lot of people are anticipating this game to come out. And so they don't want to mess up. So if it doesn't work online, people can go, oh, it's all right, I'll play some of the single player. And I guess that's a way of testing because the multiplayer is going to come out first, this is where I don't really understand. Like, I think it's a multiplayer beta that starts in 2016 that you can try out. So maybe we'll see then, like summer 2016, this multiplayer beta for it comes out. If it's a complete disaster, we know that it's probably going to not be so great on launch.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking at all of the stuff, like, it does look quite cool how you can just completely ruin all of the buildings. And I wonder if it's obviously not going to be the same as sort of Battlefield 4's sort of destructible buildings where, oh my god, like the center building falls down in one of the maps and then I can't remember what they called it.
But that's like scripted in Battlefield, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like a completely scripted. This looks more like Bad Company style sort of destruction,
like where you can take out one thing and it will cause a domino effect and it will knock out other buildings, and what you can just take out little chunks, and it's obviously a lot going, especially if loads of people are doing that all at the same time. It's going to have a lot to try and process in one go.
Like, is there anything that's going to be like literally everything? Because I kind of missed this when it was live. Is it literally everything can be destructible and it can fall down? Because again, like, by the end of a multiplayer map,
it's be flat.
you could just have a flat thing because everyone's blowing the shit out of everything. And at least with like, I'm going to use Battlefield 4 as an example again. Like, even though there was like destructible walls and stuff, like the main buildings couldn't fall down, and that was almost good in a way because you didn't have a flat map and. By the end of it,
I think part of it, I think it really is going to go all the way in terms of you can destroy it. Because like with Crackdown, it is kind of sold on the premise of just absolute, like, this isn't realistic. This is just absolute mayhem, destruction, like that sort of just, it would all be flat basically. But I don't know how the multiplayer is going to be constructed, as in, is it like just like a GTA thing where you're just constantly free roaming in someone's like lobby? Or is it where it's like a timed game mode where you have like one team versus another? I don't know if they really talked about that. They just briefly show people, like a group of like at least 8 players playing on, on a level, like on a city, destroying it, but they didn't really say what you'll be doing. So I guess it depends. But that somebody's just going to go around and just try and destroy the entire city, whether there's a, regardless of the mode, someone's going to try and make the map flap anyway. They also showed Scalebound, which looks it's quite weird because it's like,
I can't work out if I think it looks amazing or awful. I'm so on the fence because it looks fun, but why is he listening to dubstep while fighting knights with a dragon?
Because he's cool, man. He's a cool dude. Like, he comes off a dragon. He like listens to me. Oh, he's so cool, man. Like,
Can't work it out.
I couldn't help but notice though with Scalebound is that I thought it was like the stream or something, but looking back at gameplay after the event, like that's pre-recorded. It seemed to be very, didn't seem very smooth. It seemed very janky in certain bits, or like it stuttered a little bit, especially during some of the combat. I mean, what did you think about like the dragon side of like the dragons fighting each other, type deal? Because obviously you've got the guy who's just fighting with his sword, like, all the other guys, but then there's the dragon taking out the other big dragon, and he's doing most of the work, let's be honest.
The reason that I thought it was kind of interesting was because it felt like you were playing sort of like a support role to the dragon rather than being like the main, I don't know, enemy of these soldier people or whatever. So I thought that was quite interesting, in the fact that obviously you were just basically trying to help the dragon out. that boss fight that they showed off with the like praying mantis thing.
Oh.
I don't know what it was. That looked kind of cool. I don't know if I'm sold on it yet.
I mean, it's an interesting concept at least, but some people have been saying that, like with the headphones, is that when you're playing music on the console, that if you're playing music on the console, he'll suddenly like put on his headphones. So, for example, if he's about to go take out a load of guys and you start playing music, he'll put on his headphones and he might be listening to Taylor Swift while he's...
Was dubstep necessary, though?
I mean, it's gaming, so...
Yeah, it's probably just like, you know, generic, like, dubstep is what the cool kids do.
I thought it looked kind of cool. I didn't think the environments looked that great, I'll say that. Like, I thought they just looked a bit barren. Like, big, but a bit barren.
It also had, they showed off Quantum Break, showed some more gameplay of that. They seem to have, like, completely replaced the previous, like the main protagonist, like, pretty much everyone who's, like, the main characters in the game. Like, you've got, I forget his name, but Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. He's, like, the main villain, I think. And the way that Quantum Break's going to work is there's going to be... People are saying it might be episodic because it's a TV show on the side which focuses on the villains, and the game focuses on the heroes. And some people are predicting that you'll have like one part of the game, because if it's like a weekly TV show thing, every time there's a new episode, there's a new bit of the game to play, and it's sort of go out like that.
So what I heard, like the original thing was with it is the sort of TV show part of it will be following the bad guys, and then the game will be following sort of the good guys.
I literally just said that.
Oh, so I phased out there.
I just saw Ebbie's face, like going...
He does this all the time, I swear.
Spaced out.
I swear to you, Internet. He does this all the time.
I'm so glad we've got evidence of this time. So yeah, I can't believe that just happened. Anyone listening is going to be like, oh my god. Okay, so yeah, you've got the TV show, you've got the game, and they're basically, I think, following along in the same time frame, so it could work out that you've got like chunks of the game that are available every time there's a new bit of the TV show. But more importantly, like, did you guys watch the gameplay of Quantum Break? Did you see much of it at all?
Yeah.
What did you think of it, like with the mechanics and everything and how it played out?
I thought it looked like a bit of a mess, to be honest. I don't think it looked that good, personally. It just looked like there were about 15 different mechanics going on, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around what was happening, personally.
I think it looked quite interesting in a way, with the whole sort of time stuff in it, where it's like there's one of the gameplay clips. You know, it's a bad night, isn't it? Where he's like firing against the enemies, and then he sort of freezes time and moves to a different position, and then the enemies are obviously a bit like, oh, hang on, what's just happened there? And you're using that to your advantage.
But then you've also got the guys who have the like technology on their back that allows them to sort of go against that in a way. But then if you rip it off them, they freeze in time.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how that really plays out, and like whether, like, do they get full control of like the time stuff, and how does that actually link in with your sort of hero's ability to freeze time and stuff?
I had one thing which is just like, in terms of stopping like an enemy, like, you know, when they're aimed at a particular like enemy and just froze him, or like froze in front of him, how accurate is it where you want it to go? Because if you missed and it froze something next to him, and you're like how accurate? That's what I'm kind of concerned about, is like how responsive is it be like, I want to aim here in front of him, or does it miss and he can just carry on shooting? Like, some of the mechanics seemed unclear as to like how exactly they would, like, without context, how do they work?
I mean, I imagine it would work similar to like Dead Space's stasis stuff.
Oh, is that where they just sort of go in slow-mo?
Yeah, they go in slow motion. So I assume it would work in the same like aiming system as that. From looking at it, obviously we don't know for sure yet.
Yeah. But, I mean, would you watch the TV show at all? It's an Xbox exclusive, isn't it? Yeah, it was part of like Xbox Entertainment Studios apparently was like a department, like a different branch of Xbox or Microsoft, and that got shut down. But they're carrying on the TV show anyway. I don't know who's in charge of that and who's running that and who it's been like delegated to. But they definitely had like the original studios that does all that kind of stuff was shut down. Not too long ago, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I wonder if they are like, if that's the case, then whether they'll just instead of releasing it separately, like as a TV show,
Have it all
just have it as like a massive FMV or something like that.
Don't know. They seem pretty adamant that it was going to be a TV show.
Because it's like you think they'd want to kind of have it like you wouldn't want to watch all of the entire TV stuff, and then I think that they kind of want you to do it in situ with like the game and the TV. Like, oh, I'm at this point in the TV show, I'm at this point in the game, and they're following along each other, so they kind of tie in. You go, oh, I get that. So when I played through the game and that happened, this is what was also happening over there.
Yeah, I imagine it would just be like Kojima's fucking like hour-long cutscenes. So you play through a bit of the game, and then you get a 22-minute chunk of FMV, and then you just play through the next bit of the game. If they're going to do it episodically, then that would be like a perfect way to do it, I guess. Like you play through the episode 1 of the gameplay, watch episode 1 of the show right at the end, and then every week you just get an extra chunk of the game.
As long as it's not like most episodic gaming where you've got to wait 7 months in between episodes.
Or if it's Telltale, it's like, oh yeah, wait 4 months.
It's out when it's out, really.
I thought that was like not the idea of it, where it was going to be like more of a weekly thing. It's like what's their name? Was it Telltale that were going to do this?
Oh, the Super Show.
Super Show type thing, where that was going to be more halfway between a TV show and a game, where it's not going to be like Telltale's massive 2-month wait in between, like you just said, obviously.
So maybe that's how it will work, like the Super Show with Telltale.
I imagine, like that's the first thing that came to my mind when they were talking about it originally, or when Telltale announced it, because this was first, if I remember rightly. This came first.
We also got. They also announced that the Ark Survival Evolved, which is quite popular on PC. I think it's in early access at the moment. Which is basically like a survival game, but with dinosaurs in it.
Dinosaurs!
I can't run that on my PC because it's just the requirements are quite insanely high. I don't think it's very well optimized on PC at the moment, but it is in early access. City Skylines is also coming to Xbox One without a release date. Dark Souls 3, did they show any gameplay of Dark Souls 3? Or was it just like a trailer?
It's just a trailer from what I remember.
Homefront, The Revolution.
I thought the trailer for that looks super interesting, and then the gameplay looks not as good.
That was the bike driving one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the gameplay. So,
I'm hoping that bit wasn't on rails, but it probably was.
I imagine it. I don't know. It might be.
The interesting thing with Homefront is that it was originally being handled by Crytek, and then obviously, they were involved with the game. But there's lots of stuff happening at Crytek where, like, allegedly, I have to say allegedly, so I don't get sued. Allegedly, people weren't getting paid. Allegedly, people they were being treated badly, and there was lots of issues within like the studio. But
is this how it works now? We can just say allegedly, and
that's what actually there was reports of it, but like whether that actually happened is it's sort of I don't know if it's still sort of not been confirmed yet. But there was lots of talk early this year, like February time, I think, because it was when Reese 2 was meant to be worked on. That's when it all started to. And then Deep Silver came along, and I think they bought the rights to Homefront. And yeah, so there are some things like when you're looking at the scope and you can change like the attachments of the gun. That stuff is like supposedly come from when Crytek were working on, because in the Crysis games you can like look at your gun, change your attachments, and that's kind of supposedly inherited from the people who did that sort of work.
It just looked really. The gameplay didn't grab me. stuff that they showed off just seemed really boring in the grand scale of things.
I'm hoping that it'll be a good game because I really like the original Homefront, but I don't think I've seen enough of the new game, to really make a general impression. But I just really hope, because it has been such a long time since that game came out. I think it came out in 2010. So by the time Homefront Revolution comes out, it'll be 6 years, pretty much. But yeah, so that was Homefront. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Lots of people were saying this was a little bit like Metal Gear. Some people were saying it was a bit like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I
remember
Tomb Raider?
Seeing
one tweet saying Tomb Raider is more Assassin's Creed than Assassin's Creed.
I saw one, like, I think it was GameSpot actually, saying about like it was similar to Metal Gear in some respects as well. I don't see
because of the
Metal
like
Gear
stealth
Rising?
or what.
I don't know. I can't even remember what the context of it was. But the fact is it Tomb Raider? Andy's someone who's played like the last one and played quite a few of the previous games.
You know, it did grab me. Like, I'm actually quite interested to see what it is, how it's going to be. But the one thing that I think confused me about it is I want to know the context of when this one's actually set, because the reboot of it is obviously like Lara's origin story, and she's on this island and she's sort of going about and she has to sort of survive on this island and kill people to try and survive. Whereas in this, she's just like running up and diving knives into people's throats, killing people.
I heard somewhere that it was directly taking place after the last.
What the
Really?
fuck happens where between the
I
two
don't know.
things
Maybe there's
to become such
gap.
a cold-blooded killer?
Maybe there's a gap. I don't know, but I don't
She
know.
took her first life and just had a thirst for blood and needed to take 50 other people.
Can we talk about the dual arrows? Because that was bullshit.
Dual arrows. What about?
Yeah, there was like a mechanic in the game where you can target two people and fire two arrows
In different
at the same
directions.
time in different directions. And I'm like, I don't know if that's possible, personally, but that made me a bit sad.
So that's the only thing that I looked at and was just like, not too sure about that. But I think everything else, it looks like they've built on from the original reboot of Tomb Raider well, and everything seems to be. So it looks like the same cover system is going to be used, which was actually really good, where it was a sort of dynamic cover. So Lara automatically like ducked under, sort of if there was a low wall, she would automatically duck under there. And hopefully, like, instead of having sort of some of these like combat systems where people would roll and it's not really how someone would fight, whereas Lara would sort of scramble along the floor. And I hope they sort of keep that realism in it, because that was actually quite cool.
I do still have yet to play the last Tomb Raider game that came out. It's on my list.
It was good.
Sitting on my Steam library installed. I was going to make like a goal to play it before Rise of the Tomb Raider comes out, so I can sort of play that and go, do I like, because I haven't played Tomb Raider for a long time. I think the last time I played a Tomb Raider game was briefly in like 2007 when it was like Tomb Raider Underworld or something.
Okay.
Which I didn't play too much of that, but the only thing that kind of, when she started running along and like using a submachine gun or whatever, I was kind of like, I didn't realise that she was this much of a, insanely good with weapons. Like, I know she has like her dual wield pistols and all that.
But I mean, they
doesn't have
sort
that
of retconned that, yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't have the dual pistols.
Doesn't she?
Like in the reboot, she only had like the one pistol, but I assume that was because that's the origin story. It's like she hasn't found the dual wielding sort of technique.
She hasn't thought of the idea to go, maybe I should hold two of these.
Yeah.
2 guns.
This is insane. No. Like a few years later. Yeah.
So
My concern with Tomb Raider is that they're showing a little bit too much of it. I don't know why, it's just, it seems to pop up every like event that they have, and I'm like, okay, cool, it's nice to see more of it, but I've already seen it, I already know that I want to play it.
It's because it's a timed exclusive, so Microsoft want to make the much use of it as they possibly can until
I'm going to
it
be playing
runs
it
out.
on PC, so...
yeah, so I just, the one concern with it is that they're not going to properly explain how she goes from sort of frail Lara who's got a thorn in her side at the start of the reboot to getting off the island at the end of it, and then suddenly killing everyone for fun.
I mean, she had that switch in her anyway, where like in a cutscene, she killed a person. She's like, "Oh my god, I killed someone!" And then immediately afterwards, you have to go through this section where you have to kill like 20 people.
And once she gets over her first kill, she's fine. She's like, it's all the same now.
It's one thing from, like I said before, from going around trying to actually, because like everyone, because there's that controversial almost rape scene as well in it, like going from that to having to kill all the people to get off the island to, I don't know why she's at X area in this.
I feel like the
going
worst,
around killing a load of guards.
The fact, even though I haven't played it, I feel like the worst scene from what I've heard and what I've been told is where she gets impaled up here. Like that is supposedly the most horrific.
I don't think Andy ever saw that. I seem to remember having this conversation with you. You know, there's the bit where you're like going down the waterfall and you have to like
there's a spike.
Side to
there's
side.
Two
there's
spikes.
A spike that just impales.
Oh, that's a game over scene, is it?
Yeah, and she's like.
But there's two of them apparently. I think you get past one.
There's one where you're on a parachute. Like you're on a parachute. You've got a parachute and you're like going through the trees and stuff, and you can run into the tree and sort of get a branch. Through you.
I don't remember this part of the game.
I thought Tomb Raider was about like shooting dinosaurs as far as I knew, so I was like, alright, this is probably going to be alright, and then fucking get impaled twice.
I think the only game with dinosaurs in was Tomb Raider 1.
I just missed Tomb Raider 3 where you could jump over Jeeves, or whatever his name was, and you could lock him in a fridge, and you could, or whatever, and you could like it would just follow you around the mansion. That's good. Good times.
And go down to Area 51. That was run around the underground system. It's something to look out for, I think, and I just hope that's the only thing that I'm worried about, and I hope they explain it.
We also had the esports segment with Halo 5.
You know what that was missing? That was missing air horns.
No one has ever done that in the history of Halo.
I thought the Spartans looked really weird. I don't know why. When I was looking at the designs for the Spartans, I just kept saying the Spartans look really weird. That was my only thought. That was my only thought through the entire thing.
I mean, I'm not, like, I found Halo, everyone's going to castrate me again for this, but I found Halo a bit boring. I wasn't that into the gameplay of it. I can see why people like it.
That's fair enough.
But I just didn't find it interesting. And I think the only thing that sold for me about Halo 5 is watching esports on it.
It's quite entertaining, is it? See, this is the difference between, like, you weren't exactly sold on Halo. I wasn't exactly sold on the esports part that they... Not that I don't like esports, it's just that whenever they show it at press conferences, I just kind of... I feel like it's been shoehorned in just to go, oh, ours is the best competitive game and we're really going to, like, you know, prove it to you by getting these esports teams on and we're going to do it in front of the... Like, I feel like the press conference is an opportunity to say, tell us as much as you can about your game without telling us too much and spoiling everything. But it's like spending that time just going, oh my god, he got a headshot and oh look, he's made a whatever. Like, I don't want to really hear about that stuff.
I mean, it was just really an elongated ad for the Halo thing that was happening at Gamescom.
There was the shoehorned in there as well, like the Halo for the first Halo World Championships are coming up. And I'm like, how is this just a thing right now? Like, how have you never done this?
I think they've done similar stuff like they did with like back in Halo 2 days. I think with the Master Chief Collection as well, they were doing some sort of.
They literally said this is the first World Championships. Like, they've never done it before, apparently, and I was like, how?
But the thing,
how have you not done that? It's fucking Halo.
The thing that I'm more interested in with Halo 5, and the bit that sort of has gripped me with Halo 5, is more the single-player side of things, because in this one, it's more... Because in the older ones, it's like, well, Halo 1, 2, and 3, it's like, you play as Master Chief, and you're taking on whichever enemy. Even with Halo 4, like it's like, oh, these are the Prometheans, I think that's what they're called. But with Halo 5, it's like Master Chief, like is he the bad guy in this? He kind of goes rogue. He goes against the Spartans, and you've got this whole cat and mouse thing where you're playing as Agent Locke, who's trying to hunt down Master Chief, but then you're also playing in the perspective of Master Chief as he's being hunted by Agent Locke. So you've got Agent Locke's team trying to hunt them down, and you've got Master Chief and his guys trying to basically escape. And so it's this whole cat and mouse thing, and you're sort of switching between the two. So when, like, in my head, it's like you'll be getting to a certain section, and you might see Master Chief running off into the distance, and you might switch to Master Chief looking back over there, being shot at by him or something. But like, I just like that whole thing with single player, the fact of that for once he's not seen as like, he might be the hero, but he's also seen as a traitor, and he's also been seen as, betraying them, and he might be the bad guy, but is he the bad guy? And just whole sort of thing between the two of them, like it's almost like two main characters rather than just Master Chief,
I'd like to see them make Master Chief actually interesting, because for me he's never grabbed me as a character.
That's what I'm hoping
I like Halo enough, but I'm not like, Master Chief, best thing ever.
Like, that's what I'm hoping with this one, is that because we've got this new angle on it, that we'll find out more about why Master Chief, break out of that generic mold of just, being the good guy, and like him telling a bit more of his story, how he ended up in this situation. So I'm sort of more sold on the fact that single player, the multiplayer is all fun and all good, and you can have some fun with that, but that's really what's sort of gripping me with the game.
Speaking of Master Chief, did you see the card that they had on the screen that had memorable characters from Xbox franchises and whatever? And one of them was a guy I don't know. The other one was Gears of War, dude.
Marcus Phoenix, Gears of War.
Yeah, Marcus Phoenix.
A real game for real men on a real...
And then it was Master Chief. Then it was Lara Croft. And then it was a car.
Oh, Forza.
It was like...
I'm sure there's more memorable Xbox characters than the ones they've picked out there.
Apparently a car is more memorable than the...
No, I don't think, again, Sega, it's not Sega, Sony, what memorable characters have they got?
Jack and Daxter, Crash Bandicoot.
Okay, they got more than...
But they're still not in recent... They're not, still around Crash Bandicoot or Jack and Daxter.
So they're sort of older stuff.
Getting a reboot, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's still an old game.
Nathan Drake.
Is it? Wait.
I'm pretty sure Jack and Daxter is, yeah.
Jack and Daxter's an old game.
Getting a reboot.
What?
Hold on, you carry on talking, I'll look this up to make sure.
No, hang on. I don't think I can carry on now. I need to... I don't think it is. I know there's speculation. They were going to work on a new one.
Wait, what was... Maybe it wasn't Jack and Daxter.
There was the whole thing, they were going to work on Jack and Daxter, but then they worked on The Last of Us, and then Naughty Dog were like, we've outgrown Jack and Daxter now, and it's like, oh, fuck off, Naughty Dog.
Maybe it wasn't Jack and Daxter. What the fuck was it?
I don't think that they'll ever go back to Jack and Daxter, because apparently they're too cool for it now.
They're too cool for it, Jack.
They said they've outgrown it.
What else did they do?
Well, why you look for that? Should we...
Alright, you carry on. I'm going to figure out what I'm talking about.
Okay. So, Halo 5. I just going back to the esportsy side of it, I actually think, if you rewatch that, there was actually some quite cool camera angles and stuff they showed off, so that'd actually be really cool for the esportsy sort of reviewing a match. There was some of the kills that were there, it actually showed, a person was here, arrows round to, where they were going, and then, it seemed like you could manipulate it a bit more just to show, people watching what's actually happening in, a replay.
I don't think it was the fact of the esports. I think it was just more, whenever I see it at a press conference, I find it really awkward.
It's not a good way to show off the game. It's a good way to advertise esports.
When you watch esports and you've got a stadium and everyone's going nuts, that's when you kind of feel the atmosphere and you kind of get into it. But when you're showing it at E3 or Gamescom, the crowd are fairly mellow. It's the people who are in the crowd are just sort of more focusing on what's in the game so they can write about it later on or they can do coverage on it. And so it's not really, it's the environment that bugs me when they do esports there more than anything. They also showed, they announced Halo Wars 2, which I never played the original Halo Wars, but apparently quite a few people that I've heard call it the best RTS game on consoles. That's what some people have said that I've listened to on other podcasts and what I've seen online of people saying on forums, but I actually never really played the original Halo Wars.
I never played it either. It seemed to... Oh, Ebbie seems to have found something.
Going
over live to Ebbie in the studio.
I got it confused. There's a new Ratchet and Clank game, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's what I got it confused with.
No! No. no.
I was in a PlayStation.
It's alright.
I'm still.
I'm still excited for Ratchet and Clank. So that's all
Halo
right.
Wars.
Yeah.
Creative Assembly's got a hold of it.
Yeah, they're sort of working on it with 343, and they've done Total War. So.
Which isn't entirely bad from what again. Total War's not really a franchise that I played that much of.
Here's something that I also a good point I heard mentioned about this was that if not Creative Assembly to work on this project, who else? Who else is there?
Westwood.
Who?
Westwood.
Westwood.
The disbanded studio that did Command and Conquer.
Oh. Yeah, but ones that are still around.
There's not really many like RTS people about. There's Blizzard for StarCraft.
Yeah, there's
the guys that did.
I guess you could get some turn-based developers, maybe, to take a crack at it. There's the people who do like Ubisoft with Anno 2205 and 2275, I think. I'm sure there are more.
There was another one recently, which is it Act of Aggression? Is that?
Oh yeah, that's one.
That's meant to be quite a good RTS.
The people who make Company of actually no, it's that Creative Assembly, Company of Heroes. That's to do with Sega. It might be. There isn't much choice basically. There's
Age of Aggression. Sorry, by Eugen Systems, EUGEN. Eugen Systems.
I'm sure, isn't it Act of Aggression?
Why did I say Age? It's clearly Act. Oh, fuck, I'm having a bad night.
Brain is melting today. So basically, the main point is there's not really many, and so they've done Total War, and Total War games have, apart from maybe Total War Rome 2 didn't get the greatest of impressions from critics. But some of the earlier ones have like been quite popular and always got high praise. So maybe they are the sort of, guys for the job. But yeah, none of us really played it, so
we'll see what they do with it.
And last but not least, they had the indie section, which they call Idea Xbox, and they showed Sheltered, which is very similar to Fallout Shelter, apart from the fact that there's like I saw a screenshot. It's actually out on early access now, and I've got it added to my wish list because I am intrigued. I am interested in the game, and I'm going to keep following it. But there's a section, like a screenshot, where it shows like you fighting another character out in like the wasteland, and like it shows like stats of like attack and all this stuff. So it might be like Fallout Shelter, but with like more, not as shallow as that. Like it's because Fallout Shelter is very mobile. It's a mobile game, so it's not got too much sort of depth to it. It is quite addictive, but it just hasn't got that much content. So it's probably more like a fleshed out version of that.
I lost interest quite quickly in that, to be honest.
I probably would have played it if my phone could run it.
Yeah.
I got to 200 and then never touched it again. They also showed The Escapist, The Walking Dead, which is basically like it's like usual Escapist, but it's based around the hospital that what's his name? Now my brain's Rick wakes up in, and I think you're trying to escape the hospital, or
okay,
cool.
It's based around.
So is that DLC to The Escapist? Is it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't, it's definitely not a free update. That'd be so cool if it was. But and then it was Beyond Eyes, which was the one where it's about a blind girl she hears sounds and she makes out what those images look like based on the sounds. Because I don't think she was blind at birth, so she kind of remembers what things look like. So she might hear water running, but instead of thinking, oh, it's a water, it might be sewage running through. But you might also think it's like a well or like a waterfall or something. So it's like just making out what from her memory and those sounds, picturing together the world and what she thinks it is. It seems like quite an interesting concept, I think.
Yeah, and that by the time you're watching this, that would have come out yesterday.
Oh, is Beyond Eyes coming out?
I think it's out already.
It's out on the 11th of August.
Oh man.
And last but not least, they had We Happy Few, which is like a drug. I'm trying to explain. How do you explain? It's like a.
The aesthetics of it reminded me of Bioshock. It seemed to be in a bit of a some of the angles and stuff of all the world reminded me of it a bit.
Did you see any of the gameplay that they showed? I don't think they showed it during the show, but they showed some gameplay of it afterwards or during So there's different areas of there's like different, think of Minecraft where you've got like different biomes, for example. You've got there's different biomes in this, and they kind of, I don't know if it's procedurally generated, but basically you have these different like cities and areas, and in some places they have they're wearing suits and people are on this drug called Joy, and everyone's on it, and so if the police catch you on it, they're like, oh, you're not on the drug, and that's when you see when the policeman injecting you. So it's sort of going around different sort of, it's like having like in life where you've got like middle class, lower class, all that sort of stuff. So if you go into like one of the areas where there's people that aren't well off, you have to sort of like rip your shirt off, or they'll start attacking you if you look like really suited up and snobbish. And but apparently if you die, you wake up in another random area, and there's different areas that are on different drugs, and people will treat you differently based on how you come across, the way you act, the way you look.
It looks interesting. It's a game I'm going to be hopefully taking a look at.
Visually, it doesn't look as good. The gameplay doesn't look as good as what they actually showed at the, nowhere near actually.
So not.
No, it kind of, if it looks like that, I'd be a lot more impressed, but it kind of seemed, I don't know, half as good graphically as that.
The general aesthetics of it, intrigued me. I mean, there was Forza and that they showed off as well.
I realise we haven't even talked about EA yet, but
Puddles, 1080p, 60 frames per second rain, yay! Forza racing.
With EA, do you think that they did a better job at Gamescom? Did you think E3 was better or Gamescom was better? What do you think overall of EA at Gamescom?
Probably better at Gamescom because they didn't have 20 minutes of Pele. No offense, Pele, but
Pele.
I agree.
Some of it was better,
apart from Sims 4.
Sims 4, I thought was bollocks. I mean, I went away halfway through it. I had to get a cup of tea or something. And when I came back, I was like, who the fuck's put a TV ad in the middle of this? Has it changed channels or something? It was like, oh no, it's The Sims 4. What was even that about?
I think, at that point I was like, oh, I'm cringing so hard, no, stop. But the rest of it I thought was good. I like the fact that, whether intentional or not, that they put all of I don't even know how much they talked about sports, because as soon as they got to the end of the conference and I'm like...
It's 13 minutes.
As soon as I was like, they've talked about all the other games, I'd basically on list, okay, they talked about Need for Speed, check. They've talked about Mirror's Edge, check. They've talked about Unravel, check. They've talked about...
Star Wars, Old Republic.
They've talked about all the games that are related to sports, so the only thing left to talk about now must be sports. And then as soon as I heard they mention the words FIFA, and before they could even say 16, I closed the browser. I'm like, I'm done. Let's leave it at that, EA, because let's not spoil.
Let's end on a high, shall we?
Can I just point out, though, how much more confident the guy who did the Unravel press conference was?
I love him. I want to marry him. He's so sweet.
But I thought it was a different person. When he came on, he was just really confident. He's really charismatic. He's just.
Were you listening? And did you hear that Unravel got the biggest cheer? When he was coming on stage,
so it must
was
have
ridiculous.
That must have bigged him up quite a bit. Must have given him a bit of a.
You know what? I think after all the positive stuff after the last conference, that probably gave him a lot more courage and just, I can do this. I can definitely do this conference. And yeah, he definitely got the biggest cheer. I wasn't too fond of all the bollocks at the start of it, Where it's like, thanks for making Yarny and doing all these pictures. I couldn't care any less about that. It was nice that people have been doing that, but
I thought that was sweet. Because,
I think
it was sweet in the same way that they gave us a bollocks backstory about it.
It's
in the original.
it's all like a not really a PR stunt, but it's all a PR sort of campaign of like, oh look where Yarny is now, and they were doing that throughout Gamescom, like, oh now he's on like he's on top of this building, or now he's like over here.
I think their Twitter might be one of my favourite things on Twitter right now. Like
that's fine. That's fine. Do all of that stuff, but
you mean keep it to Twitter?
Keep it to that, and keep it to like social media.
I think it's smart the fact that they were like, oh, here's all these like fan things that people have done, because it looks like they're getting involved with the community, and it makes them look really good, and people are like, oh man, they're interested in what the fans think. I might buy that game.
They're not like the rest of EA.
Yeah, they're not stupid. They did it for a reason.
But when they finally got to the game, I actually was quite intrigued with it. I think it looks like it's going to be a fairly decent like puzzle platformer. And if it looks as nice as it does there as well, like the sort of like oceany sort of wave effects they got in the background, that all looked rendered really well. And the puzzles seem like they might actually give a bit of like challenge, especially like, oh, you need to tie a yarn to this point here and that point, and grab the little boat thing and move that about. It actually seemed like something I would enjoy playing.
It was really weird just how like different it was from all the other EA stuff, like how it's over budget, over produced, like, oh, it's all look at this graphics, look at how amazing all these games are, and like do followed by none of that dancing, none of that. Here's just a really good strategy game. Like, and we would like you to see it. And it's like, yeah, I kind of appreciated that. But, I'm kind of also glad they showed Mirror's Edge, finally showed some gameplay of that. Because E3, they didn't show anything.
Firstly, Unravel looks really good and I can't wait for it to come out. Secondly, Mirror's Edge, me watching the video of the gameplay, made me motion sick.
Oh god.
So I won't be buying that game, I'm afraid.
I think that did look like a bit of a cut together sort of thing, especially for like the actual conference. And I wasn't sure about the rolls, like everything apart from the forward rolls, when like I understand why she's rolling, because she's jumping off these like stupidly high things and you have to sort of break your fall a bit by doing a forward roll. But I think that's just going to get a bit jarring visually.
Did you play much of the original at all?
No, I've got it, but I've
because you sort of, after a while, it seems weird at first, but you just sort of get used to it, and it sort of, you don't even notice, like, because when you roll, it is this really weird thing of like, because it is sort of, but after a while, you get used to it. Like, I was just sort of love the fact of, it wasn't like, oh, you're on a linear path, because that was what the original game was. The fact I could just go, oh, I'll go over there and jump on this building, go through there, and
I don't know, it did look fairly linear to me there.
But it's open world, so it can't be. Like, if you can just...
It's probably just the way they showed it off, and like the fact that they obviously knew the route that they were going to go very well, and there were some cuts in it as well, so it did look like she was just taking a linear path to this place.
I think the best bit about it, though, was when she got caught and she's on the run. Because, like, when she runs up the wall and then kicks the guy in the face, I was like, that's pretty cool. And when she, like, smashed through the glass.
Some sort of Matrix style shit there, wasn't it?
And I'm also glad that they're not sort of, because they showed like some, like last year at E3, they showed some really early footage and it was just so much combat of it, like just a lot of the combat, and it's like, I was really worried that they were going to just make it just this sort of kung fu simulator sort of game, but they seem to be putting a lot more focus now on like the parkour aspects and that sort of stuff, so it's reassuring.
I'd say visually it looks, apart from sort of the rolling and stuff, visually it looked quite good. If they can, I understand that that they said it's pre-alpha gameplay footage, so chances are it's going to change by the time it comes out, and it's going to look completely different. But
let's hurry up, it comes out in February.
But it looks good from what we saw of it.
Any last thing to talk about is FIFA 16. No, not really. Is Star Wars Battlefront. Andy, you're someone who...
You're the Star Wars
You're
guy.
the Star Wars guy. Although I've still got my eye on it, and I'm, I'm still intrigued. But like, what did you think of the dogfight mode where they were like flying around and they had like more of the, that sort of combat compared to on the ground?
I think I was more interested in that than the stuff they showed up at E3. That mode looks fairly interesting. It's going to have 20 AI character or players as well in it. So hopefully it's going to have that sort of feel like there's lots of like ships flying about the place. And I would like to see it in space though. That's not going to happen.
But that reminded me, like, I went to like arcades, went to the arcades like when I was younger, and they had like Star Wars. I can't remember if it was a Battlefront like in the arcades, but it was like
it's probably a Star Wars trilogy, the one where you actually were in the cockpit.
Yeah, and you're flying, and there's the one mission where you're doing exactly, when he gets like the I don't know the terminology, but where he gets like the rope and he's like wrapping it around the legs.
Oh, and the AT-AT, the where the A-wing gets the tow cable and wraps it around
That's what I meant to say. I remember that bit quite vividly of doing that, and the fact that was in there, I was like, yeah, I can. That's pretty good. Like, people apparently that played it said it's really fun as well, and they really enjoyed it.
From what I understand of that's going to be in it, but it's almost like a mini game that you have to sort of play to fire the tow rope around the AT-AT. And you have to do some sort of mini game bollocks. But like in the single or in the multiplayer stuff that's just not the dogfighting mode. You need to get tokens to be able to get into in the like X-wings or A-wings or whatever. So that's not, you can't just jump in like a Battlefield game. There's not just a load just lying about where you go,
I'm sure in old Battlefront games you had to earn your way up. Like if you start off at this like generic soldier, like Stormtrooper or whatever, and then work your way up. Like you can't immediately play as like Darth Vader or something. You have to earn your way through the classes and stuff. At least that was the way it was for the second game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a fun way of doing it. I've got to play it to be able to tell if that's fun. But from what they showed of the dogfighting mode, that has interested me more. Obviously, again, that's sort of cut together because what Ebbie was saying about it was like that would be very jarring if you were sort of in the cockpit and then suddenly you're outside of it and then suddenly there's an FMV sort of movie sequence going on, and obviously it's going to be cut together, and you could probably have some sort of chase thing, but
the thing was I was actually kind of excited about seeing the dogfighting in because you mentioned that that's what it was, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in seeing that, but I don't feel like I saw much of it. Like, there were bits and pieces here, but it was mostly look, it's the Millennium Falcon.
It looks a lot more fun, like that mode, I'd say, to play. Like, at least from watching, I'd say that seems more fun than playing on the ground.
Can I just say though, how hype the person presenting it was? Above all, this is fun. Fucking deadpan.
Oh, was she the woman who was like, in Soviet Russia, Falcon flies you? I was expecting her to go, okay, play game, shut up, drink vodka, have fun, okay?
That's the only thing that I thought detracted from that part of the actual footage that they showed off. Was just her deadpanness about talking about the whole of the game.
They could have got Peggle 2 guy to come on and go, dogfighting! Yeah, so, but overall, you were sort of quite impressed with what they showed at Battlefront.
From the limited stuff they showed, yeah, I think that's going to be funner than the other modes, and I'm kind of pleased that they're going to have a dogfighting mode in it as well as sort of the ground combat. Okay,
well, that's Gamescom sorted. We still have to talk about Splatoon. The August update that just recently happened. There's quite a lot of. It was a big update. We'd been waiting for 2 months to be able to play on the same team. No big deal or anything.
Can't do it most of the time because I was like, oh man, we could do Turf War together.
And that's the thing. Okay, before we get about like things that things that should have been included or things that are missing or stuff that should have been with it. This new leveling system they've got where you have, +1 for getting 200 points, +2 for 400 points, and +3 for winning, at least on regular. Then in ranked you have +10 for knockout. You get if you don't like if you just, it doesn't become a knockout, you get 1 point for every minute that passes. So like 2 minutes, you get 2 points. 3 minutes, you get 3 points. And that sort of, as every level you go up, you need 24 more points to get to the next level on top of what the last level had. So for example, if you're going to get if you're one of those people who's getting 1,300 points and you win, then somebody else who got 10 points will get will progress the same amount.
They get 400 points.
Oh no, sorry. If they get 400 points and you got 1,400, so you got 1,000 more than them, you will progress at the same level that they do, because you'll both get +5 regardless of how much. The reason for this supposedly is to improve on the teamwork aspect of it and winning, rather than just trying to get as many points as possible on your own. But what do you think?
You get points by painting the ground, which is the point of the game mode, so I don't understand.
I don't think it improves on the teamwork aspect at all, to be honest. I haven't worked any differently than I have previously.
I mean, I've always, if I ever see any of my teammates in trouble and I can help, I'll do that, but I'm not going to stick around and try and help them when I could be doing other stuff that helps us win the game.
Apart from ranked, where I think in rank it sort of does better for itself, because you're like, oh, if we win as a team, we all get +10.
But the only reason you've been doing that is because when we've been playing team ranked, and we've actually had a Skype call together as 4 people in a team ranked thing, and so we can actually talk to each other and be like, okay, we need to do get this splat zone, or we were going
double diamond back.
Yeah, double diamond back. We had strategies, we had call outs, we had a legitimate strategy for one map that worked the majority of the time.
I'll never forget that one match that we had where we won by 1 point.
And it went into
overtime.
Yeah.
And we beat them by 1 point. It was ridiculous, and we were all so hype afterwards. Ranked with friends is so much more fun than ranked by yourself. I'll say that much.
Yeah, especially as that one, we were 20 points down just as the end. We were like, what's this overtime shit? What? What? Yeah.
But would you prefer to have the older leveling system than this one that we've got now?
I get the fact that it's gonna extend the leveling thing for me. I'm gonna obviously spend more time getting a level. It's gonna be more rewarding when I get the level, but I feel gypped because I'm one of those people that scores quite highly. I know that's gonna be I'm real good at Splatoon. It's just because of the weapon I have. I score tons of points all the time, and I don't feel like I'm getting rewarded for that.
I've got a question. Do either of you ever get to the point where you get to the 400 points, and you know that if you're doing really well and you get to the 400 points, you're like, I know I've maxed out now. Well, either No,
I mean it's just if I finish this game with just 400 points, I'm gonna have the piss taken out of me by everyone else I'm playing with.
I just get 400. I'm like, oh, I got my 400 now. We're winning 400. Doesn't matter how many points I get. When we used to play a few months back, I was like, oh, I'm going to get as much points as possible, because the more points I get, the faster I level.
I will say this, though. The reason that I still try quite hard in terms of trying to get points is because you get, a money per point or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
A money.
I don't know what the currency is called in Splatoon, but they just, added all this new gear that I really, really want, because I'm really into collecting all the gear and whatever. And some of it's really expensive, so it's nice to be able to just have the money so I can get all the new gear and try out new stuff and cosplay as Ikamusume. So
the thing with the new leveling system that I think's gonna, I don't think I'm gonna get bored of it before I get to level cap.
I don't think I'll ever get to level 50. I think I'll be on to playing other games, and I'll be burnt out with Splatoon before I ever get to 50. Because
we'll see if they announce more stuff and you're like, I could play some more Splatoon and get a level here and there.
But mind you have to get 700 between level 49 to 50. I think you have to get 720 points.
That's gonna take.
Because when we calculated it, it's you have to play over 100 hours to get from level 20 to 50, and that's if you're just constantly winning and doing really well. And that's That's not including ranked.
That's a ridiculous amount of time.
But I've already put in 74 hours into Splatoon. I can't see myself putting in. I reckon Andy's played more. He has to have played more. Actually, no, it's 72 to 74, something like that. They're all going to go check. But I can't see myself playing 100 plus more hours of Splatoon and not getting bored of it. And plus, also, by the time that it took me to get to that, or by the time I think I would get to level 50, there'd be other games that have come out by then. I mean, look at how many games are coming out in October. But no, September, October, November, December.
Year, just putting that out there.
Yeah, there is a ridiculous amount of games coming out between September to December. And I feel like Splatoon's just going to get buried, for me, is going to get buried in the pile of all of those. And then I'll sort of, not because I don't like Splatoon, but just more the fact of, I've played so much Splatoon, I want to play these games I haven't played yet. And it'll just get buried to the bottom and then I'll forget about it.
I think it's going to be my jump in with friends and play game.
Yeah,
that random thing where it's like, oh, we haven't played for a week. Do you want to pop on for a bit?
Mario Kart was that until
we don't play Mario Kart anymore.
We don't talk
played
about
107 hours.
We don't talk about Mario Kart. 100 and what?
7.
Much.
I've only played 78.
Oh, okay.
Played 107.
Would like to say I'm the same level as you, Ebbie, and you've played a lot more.
I would like to point out you were level 19 for ages, and also I was maxed at level 20 for longer than you. So
it depends how much you played at level 20 as well. But in terms of talking about like not being able to play with your friends on Turf War, like at least in a group, are there any other things that weren't in this update that you thought, why didn't they add that, or they should have put this in there? Is there anything?
I still think they should change Splatfest. That, like, obviously there was a Splatfest at the weekend again, or not obviously if you don't follow Splatoon. And while that was on, they take away all of the different modes, and it's just Turf Wars. And
you can do private matches now.
You can do private matches, but like team squad battles, you can't do that because it's a ranked mode. And I think they should have done like potentially like a Splatfest with friends mode. So if you're on the same Splatfest side, so like north or south, it would let you play with your friends on the north.
I was talking to Kinross about this because during the Splatfest we kind of agreed on the fact that if you can play Splatfest with your friends and together, being on the same team, there develops this problem that will people just choose a team based on whoever their friends' team is with. So you might just get a massive lopside of like, oh well, my friends are on this team, so I'll join that, and then everyone's just like, oh, we'll all join the same team.
If they come up with like better themes than North Pole versus South Pole, because that's the worst theme we've had so far.
That wasn't very good.
It was not a very.
It
good
was
theme.
a bit more like eeny meeny miny mo.
It was like, do you like bears more or penguins more?
I
Do you
didn't even
like
look at that. I was
more
like,
or turquoise more? Like,
yeah.
Like, at least with like rock and pop, I could be like, oh, I've listened to more rock music, and I don't even remember what the one after that was. Oh, sleeping or eating. I was like, yeah, I quite like sleeping. Eating's a bit of a chore, so...
There's also the fact of where is the Rainmaker game mode? When's that coming out? Wasn't that meant to be with this?
They said that it would come out after the August update.
Oh, did they? I thought, like, oh, they just forgot about it.
Yeah, they mentioned that... you remember when they had that Splatoon stream?
Oh,
where it was
yeah.
just about Splatoon. They were like, and we're working on a new game mode called Rainmaker. It'll be out at some point. And that's all we know about it. I don't know what it is, so...
the thing with Squad Battle is we just need to have all game modes. I don't understand why.
It's basically like a capture the flag thing. So Rainmaker is a ranked game mode. In this mode, 2 teams fight to obtain a weapon called the Rainmaker. The goal is to carry the Rainmaker to the opposing team's base. A scoring system called goal distance determines the winner. So it's like the tower defense, it sounds like, but you pick up a weapon and then you have to get that to the opposing team's base. I'm not sure what that does.
The thing I don't get is just the only, like, ranked battle has all these game modes and all that regular battle has is Turf War. And it's like, when we have this problem, that Andy's frozen.
Andy keeps freezing.
That was just really awkwardly frozen for a second there. Yeah, Rank's got all of these game modes, and Regular's just got this one Turf War. But Turf War is the one that us lot usually have the most fun on. You know, like Tower Control.
I don't know.
Tower Control. Okay, Splat Zones was quite fun, and we did really well on that.
I liked Splat Zones way more than I liked
But Tower Control was a bit. I was going to say hit and miss, but it was more miss and miss.
It was just like complete clusterfuck because we were just like, I don't know what to do because
we tried changing weapons and it didn't work. We tried doing different strategies to work, and
I quite enjoy it sometimes. Like a lot of the time, it is just over within seconds because you just get your arse handed to you. But it can be fun every now and again.
But I just wish that like we could play Turf War with our friends because we always go on like regular battle to do Turf War, and with that comes the compromise of us not being able to play on the same team. So it's
that was all we wanted. That was all I wanted was to be able to play Turf War on the same team as my friends, and that's not the case.
We've never been able to constantly, consistently be able to play on the same team on Turf War. It's just something that Nintendo does not want us to be able to do. They're like, no, you don't need this.
That is the biggest thing missing from Splatoon because I can't be like, oh, do you want to jump on, have a laugh? Have a couple of games and people will be like, yeah, because we're always like, fuck you, you're the worst. Cause
they go Tower Control.
You know what? I think I'm okay with it sometimes though, because it's kind of fun playing against my friends sometimes and then being like, oh my god, you're on my team. Yeah, let's kick Matt's ass.
Yeah, but I'd like the option to be able to play against like another team with 4 friends or whatever.
Because obviously there's private battle, but then you don't get in rank and it's like...
So there's no point really, because I'm all about like getting my level up and getting more money and stuff, and you don't get any of that from doing private battles. It kind of sucks.
It does.
But you do get to choose your map in private, which is like the best thing about it, because that's what I want them to update. Please put 3 maps in rotation instead of 2, because every time there is a map that I don't like, it'll be that one 15 times in a row, and I just want to die.
Speaking of maps, segueing on. Speaking of maps, what would you like to see for like future content, and would you be willing to spend money on it? So would you like to see it in the form of like the way Mario Kart had it, with like DLC packs? Would you like to see them release more gear or more maps? Should they release just one map at a time, or?
I think if they were going to do something like charge DLC, they'd have to be very careful about how they did it, because there's going to be a bunch of people who then don't have the maps. So it's going to like split the community in half to people who have bought the DLC and people who haven't. And sometimes it's difficult enough to get into a match anyway.
The biggest problem is it kind of works with Mario Kart, having a divided community. But with Splatoon, we all have to play on the same maps at the same time because of map rotations. We can't pick.
That's also true.
So
they would have to change the rotation. So it'd be like the DLC rotation, and that it would just completely destroy their model.
But would you actually pay money if they said like, oh, here's a bunch of DLC?
If it included like gear, a couple new weapons, maybe some extra maps, and it was like bundled together, I'd be like, yeah, sure.
But if it was like, you get
if it's like pay 99p for a t-shirt, I'd be like,
yeah.
You know, I'm not too sure, because like I think if they start making you pay for weapons, then people will start claiming pay to win. If the weapons are better than the ones that are currently on offer, people will start pay to win, right? Which they might be.
A skin for a gun or whatever.
I guess also it would be the fact of if you paid for a gun, do you unlock that immediately, or do you have to also get the coins for it, like you usually do?
I assume you'd just unlock it immediately.
Which then it would become an issue of the worst case scenario would be you can unlock all of the guns in Splatoon if you just give us £20.
Yeah, they need to be very careful with that. I'm not sure if there's going to be a right model for it, to be honest, unless it's gear, which I don't think everyone will buy.
I'd buy the gear. Like, I'm all about the gear, so I'd be one of those people that's like, oh, fire for a bunch of new clothes.
I think I'm all about the maps, to be honest. I want more variation, more choice.
But these existed. These have like gear and.
I wear the exact same clothes. Like, I just settle on a outfit, and I'm just like, I'm gonna just constantly always wear. I never change up my stuff. But personally, that's just.
They
Yeah, actually, yeah, they already did DLC.
Yeah, they already did DLC in the Amiibos because you got new mini games, new weapons, and new clothes. With
Did you get
these.
new weapons with it?
Oh, pay to win.
What weapons did you get?
You got like a new roller, a new charger. I don't remember what you got with the squid.
Oh, bloody hell, okay.
But they were like, I think they might have, no. Yeah, they were like the heroes' replica weapons and they weren't that great, so.
Oh, well, that's probably what I know about
But if they wanted to do DLC, just do more Amiibos.
No, don't do more Amiibos, because not everyone can get them. Although
Do more
Amiibos have
Amiibos and
started.
actually make them properly.
If
I
they're
could
going
just
to do that, do Amiibo cards as well, so that people can actually buy them.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you just settle like a bundle thing where they just have you get X amount of gear, X amount of like 2 new maps, to this many new weapons. But like if you're going to bundle it all together and say you get all this, but then if they are going to do that, change up the way you do the map selection. That's the only way around it, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all maps will have to be free, to be honest. With the way that they run their game, any future maps are going to have to be free. I can't see a way around it.
Yeah. Well, this has been all for episode 45 of the Spawn Point podcast. Thanks for joining me, Ebbie and Andy.
No problem. It's bedtime now, though.
It is bedtime now. And of course, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Virtual Gladiators. You can get 10% off servers when you use the code VECTRA. And if you click on the video right now, then you can be taken there. And the prices have actually been reduced quite a lot since a few months ago when we were mentioning before. So it's a lot cheaper, plus you get 10% off. But this has been episode 45, and we hope you've enjoyed this. Let us know what you thought of Gamescom and what you think about Splatoon if you play it, plus the update. Until next time.
Goodbye.
Ruined it.